Greetings and welcome to the Here We Stand podcast. We have made it to 2025 and a new year. We're located right here at Providence Baptist Church on Hooper Road, deep in the heart of God's country, central Louisiana. We're glad to be with you today. And today I have with me first my producer, co-elder, music minister, all things tech, Dr. R.D. Peters. He's behind the wheels of steel right now, conducting all of this, which would never be done if he were not here. And also today we have our special guest, Pastor Rusty Reeve from Reformation Church. Rusty, how you doing today?
Doing great. Good to be here.
And I understand you just came back from Lake Bruin and a fishing trip?
Yeah, with my grandsons.
Oh, boy.
Who are 3 and 6. So
How'd that go?
That was interesting. Yeah. Exhausting.
Did y'all catch any fish?
Not a single fish was seen. No.
I understand.
No.
I understand that. Me and Levi are fixing to embark on my pond.
Yeah.
Now, there's only 2 kind of baits necessary. You know what those are?
Spinnerbait and what was it? Spinnerbait and the crankbait?
Bingo. Now, that's an inside joke. And the reason why we have inside jokes is it's going to be incredibly in 2027, 30 years ago that we met, if you can believe that.
That's amazing.
It really is.
That is.
And so what we want to do, what we want to start out with today is what we've been doing with the Here We Stand podcast last year, and we're going to continue to do this with each of our speakers and especially our pastors that are of the sponsor churches. We want to do a little biography. So what we would like to do is start out, Rusty, with you giving us a bio of your life. And we want to go all the way back to the days of when you were a little guy and Wendell Knox was swinging his sword as a young man and a dad, and then take us through Glen Oak Panther and all the way up to where our stories intersect. And so I'm going to let you go ahead and give that to us.
All right. Well, I'm a Baton Rouge boy, like yourself, North Baton Rouge boy.
Amen.
Born and bred. I grew up in a little place called Brownfields, Louisiana. Went to Brownfields Baptist Church all my life, which is in North Baton Rouge, and went to Glen Oaks High School. Graduated from Glen Oaks High School in 1985, which was a great year. The 80s were great, and then so I was planning on going to LSU and going to probably go to law school or something like that. But in the 10th grade, I went to I guess you could call it a youth retreat. I can't remember exactly what they called it, but anyway, and I grew up in church all my life. I was a Christian, baptized at an early age. And in the 10th grade, I felt like the Lord was calling me to ministry. So I decided to change my plans, went to Louisiana College and got a degree there, got a couple of degrees. I got a degree in religion and psychology and religious education. And I was going to go to seminary, but for lots of reasons that we won't get into, I decided not to go to seminary. And at the end of my college life, I met my future wife, and we came home, and I got a job at the American Red Cross, and then I got a job at East Baton Rouge Emergency Preparedness, and she and I were married, and then I got a job at running a brick company at Acoustical Specialties, and we were going to Greenwood Springs Baptist Church, and that's where you and I met. I don't know if you want to get into that now or later.
No, you could keep going. We'll get into that.
So I was incognito in Greenwood Springs. I don't know if I ever told you this. In Greenwood Springs Baptist Church, I was a Christian. We were married. You go to church. I had no problem with that, but I didn't want anybody to know about my religious background, about my ministerial background. I had been working in churches all of my life up until she and I got married as a youth minister and all that kind of stuff, music minister. And I don't know how it was that the pastor there, he was the person who married us. And we were all good friends, and he found out my background, and then he started hounding me about teaching Sunday school.
That was Barry?
That was Barry.
Yeah.
Teaching Sunday school and doing all this kind of stuff. The next thing I knew, I was teaching a Sunday school class, which is, again, has a lot to do with our background. And I remember I was teaching a Sunday school class of young people about my age. Actually, they were my age. They were our age. And so anyway, I enjoyed that. And before I knew it, I was the associate pastor at River Springs Baptist Church, and then from there, Brookstown Baptist Church. I'm trying to remember all of this.
Yeah, well, let me back you up just real quick. It's incredible to me to think back.
Yeah.
That the influence, and I talked about this when Kyle was on the show, and I did my bio, and Kyle did his bio at the same time.
Right.
The influence that Dave Hunt had on me, and then we were reading his newsletter, and to think back now how much he hated the doctrines of grace,
right,
to the point of writing that debate book with James White and everything. And I can even remember you challenging Dave publicly on tongues.
Yeah.
And do you remember he actually, it got real weird, and he was like,
I did.
There was one time when I was driving down the road and I began to sing and words I didn't understand because he was in a continuationist church. He had to give that. Right. And it got real uncomfortable.
He had been reading a book by Murray.
Yeah. Andrew Murray.
Yeah. Absolute Surrender.
Yeah. So he was, so we like, it was really, if I think back, most of a consensus of people I've read said that the internet really went mainstream. Most writers say in 1996. And so whenever we met, if you think back, it was kind of on the cusp of the Reformed resurgence.
Yeah.
And MacArthur, Sproul, Piper.
And we didn't really know that.
And we didn't.
Yeah,
we didn't.
Right.
But then slowly but surely, as we began to learn those things, and actually, I learned about what the doctrines of grace was from Dave Hunt's newsletter, because he was writing against it. And I was like, what is this? And then we started doing glass block and out of your brick company. And we would do glass block windows on Saturdays and in the evenings, which sometimes on the weeknights would last all night.
All night long. We worked all night long.
Depending on the difficulty.
Right.
And so we have many stories. People that know us best know we have many stories from those days and other things beside glass block. But is there's one story you could think of, what would be the one that maybe we want to share?
Well, there's so many. Some I can't share.
Yeah.
And not because we did anything wrong. But
this is true.
It's just too much to share. But I guess, the kids' favorite was the time that we almost killed Mike the Tiger at LSU.
Yeah. Now, wait. I want you to tell that story, but I need to preface it.
Okay.
Because the preface is one of the things that was extremely consistent in our glass block days was when we got to the job, there would at least be one thing that you forgot to put in the truck.
That's right.
And we would have to leave.
Oftentimes many things.
Yeah. So go ahead and tell us what happened that day when you forgot something in the truck. And we are at the old cage. Now it's not the new cage. This was that old cage that he was in.
Somehow we had I don't know, and this is probably more me than you. I was definitely the one that got us into all this trouble because I had a lot of contact at the brick company. And for some reason, people were contacting me like I was a real contractor. And giving me real jobs. Yeah. And I
big ones, had big jobs.
Zero contracting experience.
LSU.
Zero ability to do anything. So LSU contacts me and says that, Mike Tiger, this was many years ago. This was in the 90s, I guess.
Yeah.
And this was before they built the fancy new cage and everything. And so it turns out that Mike the Tiger had a glass block window, which is little cubes of glass, that look like glass blocks, and they're put in with mortar. And this is what we did. I sold them at Acoustical Specialties, and we would install them. And so I said, yeah, sure, I can do that.
You always say, yeah.
Always,
it didn't matter what it was. State
absolutely.
capital.
No
Glass
problem.
block it.
No
Right.
problem. I got it. So it was in the summer. It was very hot. And we took off to LSU to do the job. And I had forgotten, I don't remember what it was. I think it was a drill or something.
Essential for sure.
Yeah, something essential. So, but before we did anything, so we got there and Mike the Tiger had been isolated. We met the young guy who was
because part of his new cage was being built.
Yes,
remember,
right.
Attached to the
they
old
were
one.
adding it on. So we met this young guy out there who was an intern or a grad student or something, and he was showing us. It was fascinating. He was showing us all about Tiger memory. He took the big frozen cow tail, and threw it out there, and the tiger jumped up and ate it, and we were all, oh wow, and it was really cool. So Mike the Tiger had been isolated from his normal area. And so we commenced to shattering glass and knocking the glass out. And we took the glass block out of the window. And that's when we realized we needed something. And
wasn't there something that they told us that was very important before we went to leave?
That he couldn't be isolated from the water.
Right.
And actually, they didn't tell me that. They didn't tell me that.
Okay.
Until afterwards. But I thought that was pretty key information that they could have told us, but they didn't tell me that.
That's right. You're exactly right. They didn't tell us. That's what it was.
I didn't know
That's
that.
right.
It was about 115 degrees.
Yeah. And he needed water like every 15 minutes or so.
Who knew tigers had to have water? I knew they drank it, but I didn't know they had to have it.
And what was the average time that we would go every time to Home Depot? Like how long?
Oh, at least a couple hours because we ate lunch. Right. So anyway, we left to go. I never will forget this. I don't know if you remember this. When we pulled back up, walked up to the thing, there was a crowd of people there. Yeah. Including the, what do you call it?
The keeper.
The head guy over LSU veterinary stuff. So anyway, and he was livid.
Yes.
And we were like, oh, look at this big crowd.
What's going on?
What's going on? He's like, this tiger is in renal failure.
Right,
remember they said?
Right, he
Tiger's
said
in renal failure.
Because of you. Yeah.
Really?
Do you remember? I have a vivid memory. Mike is laying on his side. He's going, his tongue's going in and out.
He was panting. And I said, well, it's no problem. We're going to get it. We're getting this. And he said, there's a billion shards of glass all over the place. Do you realize that if this tiger gets one shred of glass in his foot, it could cost $30,000, something like that? I mean, the guy was just absolutely.
He was out of his mind. Yeah, no doubt.
So, and then, I don't know if you remember this. And so we got past that. We said, we're going to get it. Don't worry about it. We got it. And then I realized, actually, I couldn't do it. At all. Because there wasn't enough room. I hadn't measured right.
That's right.
To put the window
in. We couldn't even do it.
Couldn't even do it.
We just destroyed it. That's all happened.
I had to call a friend of mine who was a brick mason.
That's right. I forgot.
And the crew. And they came and they actually installed the block while we watched and we cleaned it up.
Yeah.
And we left and Mike lived.
He got the proper hydration.
Yes.
And he was good to go. And
he did die. But
he did eventually die. But
I want to say categorically, it was not us. It cannot be pinned on us in any way.
No, he died natural causes, I guess. And but it was just this story is almost the time we almost killed
Mike. We did not.
Yeah.
In case there are any, lawyers or anybody with LSU, we did not.
We want to make that straight.
Contribute to the death of Mike the Tiger.
Exactly.
Whatever number he was.
Right. We had like Rusty said, many other stories. We just wanted to throw one of those in there. But thinking back to when this all is happening at the same time, and you get called over to Brookstown.
Yes.
And
Brookstown.
As an interim, and then as I said in my testimony when I did with Kyle, really was dealing with Mormonism and
Yes.
James White's book, and I was
Mhm.
learning a lot about that.
Mhm.
And you asked me to come over there and teach a class
Mhm.
on Mormonism.
Mhm.
And so, but at the same time, that's happening. We brought our families over there.
Mhm.
We're doing glass block
Yeah.
in the evenings, on the weekends.
Yeah.
But this thing about the doctrines of grace keeps hitting us.
Mhm.
And so then we begin to discuss it. And I don't know at what point along the way, because I can't remember, Ed Lacey comes into the picture.
Yes.
And we go to
At
hear
Brother
him
Moat
preach at
Church.
Foster
But that was
Road.
after we.
Yeah.
That
yeah,
was after.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. But then you called Brother Huey Moat.
You remember that?
Yeah.
On a glass block job.
Yeah. And that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And he was all the more anxious to
Yeah.
come. And he came to Wendell's house
Yes.
on Comite Drive
Right.
with a big stack of books. And we had a couple of guys with us. And
Yes.
he's passing out
Yes.
abstract of systematic
Yes.
theology, James
right.
Pettigrew, Boyce, other books.
Uh-huh.
And we then, but if you remember, I remember, we didn't automatically just say, oh yeah.
No.
We were really struggling with it
Yeah.
and debating it kind of
Yes.
back and forth, not just in a way that was kind of counterpoint,
Yes.
devil's advocate. What about this? What about that?
Mhm.
And then you get called to what was then Friendship.
Well, it was so actually, I got called to Friendship first. So
Mm-hmm.
we were at Brookstown, and the year, so it was 1 year.
That's right. That's
And you
right.
remember they voted. They thought about calling me as pastor, but they decided not to.
Right. They
'Cause
wanted full time.
We got to add this because this is really cool. So they decided not to
Mhm.
do because I was too young or something like that.
And they wanted full time. They
wanted
wanted
full-time.
full-time
Yeah, that's
guys.
right. That's
Still,
right.
they
And
were
I
still at that point.
I wanted to be full time. I didn't want to be full time. So that ended, and one right there. So many of these things happen at the same time.
Right. And we're talking 28 years
Yes,
ago.
that's right.
So-
And right there, we were driving by. This is what I wanted to say. We were driving by Friendship Baptist Church on the corner of Comite and Blackwater,
Mhm.
and we said, "Wouldn't it be great if God called me there to
Right.
that church?"
Because your aunt was there.
Because my aunt there and a lot of people there, and
Yeah.
lo and behold, they did call
Yeah.
and say, "Hey, we're looking for somebody."
Yeah.
And so that happened right then, and so I went, and there were 9 people
Yeah.
the first Sunday there. Remember, 5 of them voted for me, and 4 of them
against,
voted for the other guy,
And 2 abstained and,
two
didn't vote.
that's right, and a lot of them left, and then so then we all came. We ended up like tripling the size of the church in
Right.
the first.
There were
3
7 of them, and we brought like 2 or 3
Yes.
families. I
Yeah,
think, something
that's
like
right. A lot
that. 4
of
families, maybe. Yeah.
at least 3.
Yeah.
But so anyway, that all happened, and
Then it was
Brother Moat.
That's
We
right.
were
That's right.
at a glass block job on off of College Drive. How can I remember
I don't
these
know,
things
'cause
and
I
I don't
can't.
remember where my keys are? I don't know. But we were on a job off College Drive, and we had been discussing things, and I said, you know what? I know the person to call. I got to call this person. So I called Brother Moat, and because I knew he was a Calvinist,
Yeah.
and he said something like, yeah, I kind of was expecting you to call me, and so then we met with him at Daddy's house. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
And so at that time, it's really kind of nostalgic to think back to those years. I think it was it Colin Hansen that wrote Young, Restless, and Reformed?
Yes, right,
We were kind of caught up in that.
right.
And
Mhm.
when you think back to that time, that was when like not too long after that, you had the First Together for the Gospel, and you
Right.
had Piper MacArthur, Sproul,
Right.
all Al Mohler, all of
Right.
those guys,
Mm-hmm.
and they were all kind of unified.
Right.
And the whole point was Together for the Gospel.
Right.
Boy,
Yeah.
how things have changed over
Everything's
the
changed.
last almost 30 years within the Reformed tent
Yeah.
of guys going in different directions. I kind of long for that time. It was a simpler time.
It was a simpler time. I remember. So at the same time when we were talking to Brother Moak and all that, and kind of getting going at Friendship, at the time it was called Friendship, we discovered James White
Right.
and John Piper.
Yeah. Do you want to know how James White came into place? You may not remember this.
No.
Think about this. This goes all the way back to Greenville Springs when
Uh-huh.
when we first got a hold of James White,
Right.
but didn't really know who
Right,
he was or
right,
what he was
right,
about.
right.
Johanna said, "Hey, you're dealing with Mormon elder. I saw a book in the Lifeway,
I had no idea.
and it was called "Is the Mormon My Brother?" Now, he certainly didn't have any idea of James White's theology
No,
or
he did
any
not.
aspect of any of James
Joe,
White.
we love you, but
But
you know.
but he saw the book, Mormon. Hey,
yeah.
read this.
Right.
And then somewhere along the line, we connected the dot to
Yeah.
the dividing line,
I forgot.
and that was
Okay.
right in the early years. So I just wanted to
Ah,
throw that in there.
absolutely. Yeah, all of that was kind of mishmash because everything was happening so fast.
It was. It really was. But the church grew pretty quickly. And so now let's think about right now. Let's kind of fast forward because something happened last year at what's now called Reformation Church, Friendship Now Reformation Church.
And I should say this, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
The reason why we changed the name.
Okay.
So we changed the name. I mean, obviously, we like the idea of the Reformation and things like that.
Right.
But there was another reason we changed the name, and that's because so many people were confusing us with other friendships and fellowship church.
Yeah.
And so we decided we would change the name.
Yeah. I mean, I go down Plank Road. They got Providence number 1 and Providence number 2.
I know.
I guess we're Providence number 3 for this year. I don't know. People ask. I looked up Providence on the internet, and then I was Topeka, Kansas. Well, yeah, they probably got 5,000 Providences all over. But yeah, that's not a bad idea. But last year, in the fall, there was a terrible fire, and really just completely destroyed. The building had to be torn down to the slab, and the slab is out there now. Kind of take us through that night, and then I'll interject where I even came in on that situation. What was happening that evening?
Well, so it was an amazing thing. So we were actually living at the church at the time, and on the side of the building, not where the fire was. And somebody came and knocked on the door and said, "Hey, the church is on fire." And
and that was Sheriff Gotro's son.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And I ran out to the front, and sure enough, the south side of the church was on fire. My first impulse was to grab the hose, but I realized that's futility. And it was a tough moment. Maybe I should say, we've had adversity with natural disasters and things like that at the church because in 1993, in 2003, I got a call at midnight, and the T building in the back was on fire and burned down because a young man had borrowed, quote unquote, his dad's truck.
That's right.
At about midnight, and was joyriding down Blackwater Road, jumped over the ditch, went through the playground, ripped his gas tank, hit the back building, and caught the building on fire. And he was fine. But so that happened, and so we kind of recovered from that. Actually, the Lord was really gracious to us. We were able to get 2 new T buildings. And then in 2016, like everybody else, I lost so many people. We flooded. We had to rebuild the whole thing through that. So when I was out there looking at that, I'm thinking, here we go again.
Right.
And so it all burned. We just realized that this was God at work again.
Yeah.
And it is God at work. We that day that the fire happened, we had about 125 people crammed into that little 40 by 100
that same
building.
day. Yeah.
That same day. It was Sunday.
Service, the
it was
Sunday
Sunday.
morning service.
Yeah. And we were already feeling, pressure, but when you're a small church, you don't have a lot of money and you don't know how you're going to be able to build a new building and everything. So we just kind of kept putting that off. And it was almost like the Lord was saying, well, we're not going to put that off.
But he has some unique ways of moving. I remember I lived right around the corner, literally like a minute and a half away from the church. And I was Sunday night football, laying in the bed with the grandkids happened to be in there. Now, the grandkids know in football season, there's no Paw Patrol in Pawpaw's room.
Right,
if you go come in there with Pawpaw, it's Sunday night football, right? And so Christy was in there too. And she gets a call. And she's like, what? You're kidding.
Yeah.
We're on the way. And I'm sitting there like, what? And I think she said, friendship's on fire. Cause she's just thinking friendship,
course,
know?
So.
And I said, all right, let's go. I mean, we loaded up. We were in our pajamas. We loaded up the grandkids.
Yeah.
We zoomed down there, and I get around the corner, and I see the fire trucks and the flames, and we rush up, and it was really a surreal moment for you and I to be standing there in that parking lot, looking at that building on fire where I had started out ministry at, and then I look around and. Y'all are all in your pajamas. Here comes the mayor of Central. He's in his pajamas. And it was just surreal. But through, as often as God does, through tragedy, some really neat things have happened, as you can see the hand of God moving through the fundraising that's happened. And also the Channel 2 getting involved with coming out to do stories on the church, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. And not only that, but the church has grown. I mean, so we went, thanks to you and Danny Miller and Mike Morris, really just being gracious to us. Once again, Foster Road opened their doors to us like they did after the flood.
And for us too, yeah.
I mean, what could we say? We just like standing there with, our hat in our hands, help us or, And
let me interrupt you. Classic line. When I called Mike Morris that very night, and I said to him, I told him what was happening, and they could really use a place for Wednesday. I know they want to pray Wednesday night. Can they come over there? And Mike just real deadpan. Well, we're like the Salvation Army. Everybody come, just don't come drunk.
Yeah. Sounds like him.
Yeah. But they are been so.
Yeah,
what an example. And I'd like to say it for Foster Road Baptist with Mike Morris and his wife Nelwyn and Danny Miller, music minister, and his wife Sandy, and all you folks over there at Foster Road, having both taken us in our time of need and Rusty's church. Y'all have been a great example to us in how church cooperation is really supposed to happen. And so now we've got a fundraiser coming up, right, at First Baptist Livingston.
Yes.
And that's going to be May 17th.
May 17th, yeah. And Brian Gunner and all of the brothers in Here We Stand have also been super gracious, along with you, and have just kind of really come alongside of us. And this is a perfect example of this, because really this wasn't my idea at all. This was you and Brian brainstorming this. And so he's excited about it. He's going to cook a bunch of meat. Brisket, which is really good.
Yeah. We've tasted
some of it.
Yeah.
And we're hoping to be able to raise a little capital.
Absolutely. And really, I mean, the insurance could only go so far.
Right.
So there's money on top.
It's unbelievable how much it costs to build a church.
This day's prices for building materials alone is incredible. Concrete, I mean, just incredible.
We're at Foster Road, so we're looking around at Foster Road, and I realized that the Foster Road Baptist and Brownsville Baptist, which are sister churches, and Brownsville's where I grew up. They were built in the 50s, 60s, somewhere around there. And these are blue collar churches. These are not First Baptist Church, Baton Rouge, or anything like that. The people in these churches were not really professionals. They were plant workers and those kinds of folks. Really, just down to earth folks. Didn't have a lot of money, and they weren't huge churches. We're talking about 500 maybe at Brownsfield and maybe 400 at Foster Road, and they were able to build these churches. But today, a church of 400 or 500 would struggle mightily to build a church like that.
Millions of dollars.
Millions.
Parking lot alone.
I had no idea, but yes, it would probably cost, I don't know, $3-4 million to build a church like that.
At least, if not more. So what we want to do, and we're going to have social media, please be on the lookout. When we get all the details together, please be on the lookout on social media, on our pages and the Here We Stand pastor pages and church pages, where we're going to outline everything. Pastor Brian Gunner's idea is to kind of make a day out of this deal. We liable to have some preaching going on out there, some singing, music. We're going to have brisket. Brian's got a great outdoor pavilion to do this on. He's got a playground for kids. And so we really want to come together as churches to help raise the money that Reformation Church needs in order to that extra on top of the insurance that we need to raise. We would love to get them into this building without having to do anything with that extra the amount. And so I look forward to that. I think it's going to be a great day.
Looking forward to it.
Also, before we move on, I want to, you're fixing to go to Africa next week, which is really exciting. And you went last year, right, to South Africa?
No, in 22. I went
22.
Yeah.
And now you're going somewhere else in Africa. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I'm going with African Pastors Conference, which is a wonderful organization in Southern Africa. They do a lot of work with training pastors. So what they'll do is they'll go to various areas and they'll conduct conferences. Usually 4 to 5, sometimes 6, I guess. So they're always in need of people, pastors, to come help go over there and teach. And then we'll take books with us, just like a conference here, and we'll sell the books to the pastors at unbelievably wonderful prices because they can't get books. They don't have access.
It's just like in China and all those places where they can't get access to good theological materials.
Yeah, you can't because you can't really to ship anything. We're so used to, with our phones in 30 seconds ordering something from Amazon, it'll be here in 2 days. And if you have Amazon Prime, it's free shipping. Over there, it's prohibitively expensive for them to order stuff. So that's what we do. And I went to South Africa in 22 and preached at conferences in South Africa and Botswana. And this year we're going to Nigeria and Ghana.
And how many guys are going to be going with you? Is it a group of you or?
Well, it was supposed to be me and Adam Haney, but Adam wasn't able to go, sadly, because of work situations. So it's just going to be me and a local pastor there, wonderful young guy, and at Grace Sovereign Church in Nigeria. There is a wonderful Reformed community in Southern Africa. Probably a lot of it has to do with Conrad and Guay, and those folks. It's just his legacy, but it's others too. Earl Faust, we were talking about him, and some other people who have really worked hard. And you
are going to be in different churches and going around.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll do at least 2 conferences in Nigeria, and I think 3 conferences in Ghana.
And you're going to be preaching quite a bit.
I'm going to be preaching 5 times a conference.
You sound like Brother Ed Lacey.
Yeah, I don't. Except I'm not as good as Brother Ed Lacey. So yes, I'm going to be preaching a lot.
Yeah.
But hey, if I'm over there and I'm away from my grandkids and my wife, I want to be preaching.
Might as well be working. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, we're certainly going to be in prayer for you.
Thank you.
For your safety.
Thank you.
For unction and preaching, and for those pastors to be able to absorb. Because I know they probably don't get very many chances to have somebody come from Mary, especially with the materials that you're going to pass out to them.
They're so appreciative and just so wonderful. I really fell in love with the churches in Botswana and South Africa. I know it'll be the same thing here.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. Well, we're looking forward to hearing stories because you always make stories.
There will be stories.
I know there will.
That. Yeah.
Now, I want to move next to the Here We Stand conference and kind of talk a little bit about the purpose for what we had to kind of talked about this before in the podcast, but really quickly, we have 8 churches that are the sponsored churches of Here We Stand. There's our church, Providence Baptist, where I'm the pastor, Reformation Church, where Rusty's the pastor, Riverside Baptist, Larry Hubbard's the pastor, First Livingston, Baptist Livingston with Brian Gunner, Salem Baptist, Chad Chauvin, Grace Bible Fellowship, Mark LaCour, Grace Covenant Baptist with Rusty Grant, and then First Opelousas, pastored by Kirk Alexander. And so we come together, share expenses, and there's some doctrinal distinctives that we have that we all hold to. Number one, a high view of the authority of Scripture, and that includes, inerrancy, infallibility, sufficiency, all 5 doctrines of grace, the 5 solas of the Reformation, and those things lead to a very clear, accurate, full gospel, true full gospel, in the way that we present the gospel. In other words, not leaving anything out. Substitutionary atonement, imputation of Christ's righteousness, all of those things. And then we all hold to believer's baptism and we all hold to cessationism. But so those are our distinctives. Mm. But then in secondary things and third level things, there are disagreements. Most of us are 1689, London Baptist Confession of Faith, confessing Baptist churches, but not all of us are. And then even last year, if you remember, we had Brandon Neely from Christ Church in Lafayette came to preach, who's Presbyterian. And so we're a little bit broader of a tent and holding to those distinctives. There are others that could get in there. And if you're a pastor of a church and this sounds interesting to you and you'd be interested in coming along with us and getting to know us, we're very easy to get a hold of on websites of our churches. And what's the Here We Stand website, Roger Dale? Is it BR? Yeah, herewestandbr.com. You can go to that website and get in touch with us. We're easy to get in touch with. And this year, we have, once again, 2 conferences. We have the Spring Here We Stand conference. That's coming up, and it's really going to be interesting. Friday night, April the 4th at 6 p.m. at First Baptist Church of Livingston, Dr. James White will be back with us, and he is going to debate a man, and I can't remember the man's name, that's not King James only, but who believes that the King James is the best translation. So it's not like, the King James is the only inspired, like the original autographs type of deal. He believes the King James is the best translation, and he and James White are going to have a debate about it. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah. I think it's going to be great. And then on the Saturday night, the next night, April 5th at 6 p.m., this is something I'm really looking forward to. Dr. White himself is going to do history of English Bible translations, and he's going to tell us how our English translations came to be. And I think that's going to be extremely informative, and we look forward to that. Now, here's the deal. Sunday night, the registration will open, and we don't really know how many people will come, but Brian knows he only has seating for 400. Now, there may not be 400, but there could be over that. So you're going to want to make sure to register for this conference. There's only a $15 fee per person. That's to cover the expenses of Dr. White and the other gentlemen, and maybe a little bit of food that we're going to put out there. But when that goes out, you can go to the Here We Stand. If you want to join our Facebook page, you can go to our website. All of us are going to be sharing this with the information exactly and the link to which you can go to register for this conference. And we really love to have you come out and support our conference and listen to this debate and learn about the history of where we got our English Bible translations. And then in the fall, 2025 fall conference is going to be October the 24th. That's a Friday night beginning at 6:30 p.m. And then Saturday, October 25th, starting at 10 a.m. We usually go till about 2:30 or 3. There'll be a lunch that's provided on Saturday. There'll be desserts. The sponsored churches come together and bring food to supply both of those. And
never a lack of food.
It's always a lot of food. If we can't do anything right, the Baptist, especially the Baptist contention of this conference, will make sure that we eat well. Mm-hmm. But this year's conference title is Our Sovereign God. And I really wish people could be involved in our brainstorming session when we think up. I just kind of sit back and let the smart guys do it, and I don't interject too much. But the brainstorming sessions to how this comes about is really interesting to be a part of, and I'm thankful to be a part of it. But what we've decided is that we're going to take that topic, Our Sovereign God, and then we're going to have some questions that we're going to ask as the titles of each message. So, for example, the very first and obvious question is going to be, how sovereign is God? And Pastor Mark LaCour from Grace Bible Fellowship is going to take us through all the ways biblically in God's revelation how God is sovereign over everything. And he'll give those examples. But then we're going to go to some questions that I think everybody has, whether you're new to the doctrines of grace, whether you've come to the doctrines of grace. It's a great topic to talk about. If God is sovereign, why do we pray? What's the point? Pastor Larry Hubbard from Riverside Baptist is going to give us that message. And then next, you'll be preaching on, if God is sovereign, why press on? Why endure to the end if he's sovereign over everything? And then we'll have Brian Gunter from First Baptist Livingston. He is going to answer the question, why vote? Which is perfect for him with all the work that and did you know that Brian is the favorite pastor of Jeff Durbin? Did you know that?
Of course he is. Just ask him.
I was just wondering if you had heard that. Brian will be preaching on why vote. If it says in Romans that God has ordained all who are in power, in secular power, why do we vote? Right. And then lastly, Rusty Grant, pastor at Grace Covenant Baptist Church. If God is sovereign, why tell? Why go out and why go to Africa and preach to people? Why have evangelistic messages here in the States? If God's already ordained who is going to be saved, why do we do that? So I think it's going to be a great way to learn those distinctives between sovereignty and responsibility. And I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be, and of course, you're going to be seeing on social media, we'll be putting all this out a month beforehand for you to put in your memory banks. And remember this, that our conference can only be as successful as your attendance. And we would really love for all of you to come out and be a part of this conference that's growing each and every year. Well, Rusty, anything else you can think of before we sign off for today? No,
except just to reiterate that I hope that people will turn out for the conference, both for James White and for next year. I think it's going to be great conferences. And we, again, hope you can make it out for the fundraiser, too. We'd love to have you on May 17th. Absolutely. May 17th, when you are looking on social media, be on the lookout for those posts. We'd love for everybody to come together, have a great, fun day, eat some great brisket, and raise some money to help Reformation Church get their building and be in there as quick as possible. So for now, we're going to sign off for another Here We Stand podcast. Be on the lookout. Some more will be coming up soon with these pastors who are going to be preaching at this conference. And we bid you farewell and God bless.